Thank you for joining us today on EdFile. Welcome to the program. I'm Ayola Kasim. Shoppers worldwide are using approximately 500 billion single-use plastic bags per year. This translates to about 1 million bags every minute across the globe, or 150 bags a year for every person on Earth, and the number is rising. The effect of all these waste on our lives and waterways is our focus today on the program. Do stay with us. Cities in developing countries are particularly vulnerable to climate change impacts, especially changes in rainfall because of the exposure to extreme weather events. Excessive rainfall leads to flooding, especially in areas with poor natural drainage systems. Areas where water inundates the capacity of the soil to contain water, and in areas where poor land use practices prevent drainages from channeling excess water away. The heavy rainfall, coupled with bad human activities in relation to the environment and lack of drainage infrastructure in most Nigerian cities, have left hundreds of people distressed and homeless. Plastic shopping bags choked waterways in most cities. Drains clogged by plastic bags and bottles overflow, sometimes causing massive flood in some cases. Flooding in Lagos is nothing new anytime it rains. Sometimes it may be a flash flood, and at other times the flood may be severe. But the truth is that anytime it rains, the metropolis is always in trouble. While movement may be a Herculean task for the commuters, residents are always at the receiving end. Flood menace has ravaged several towns in Nigeria for several decades, leaving its wake loss of thousands of lives and tens of billions of naira worth of properties damaged, which calls for holistic, urgent action. Some professionals, meanwhile, are looking for ways of solving this environmental challenge in a sustainable way. The United Nations Consulate in Nigeria recently partnered the Nigerian Society of Engineers and a waste management company, Globetech Remedial Nig, to unveil an engineering solution for stormwater and sewage challenges in the cities.
Have designed solutions to solve the kind of problem we're having. You know, the challenges we're having, they're not new. We have nations who have passed through this same process, and all they have done was to use technology to solve all these problems. So we don't really have to reinvent the wheel. All we have to do is to do the catch-up, and that's what we believe in, and that's what we're doing with a team of other experts in environment. We have a lot of chambers and culverts and tunnels on the country, and the moment we build these tunnels, we don't go back to maintain them. And what happens is that we now have a lot of deposits and sediments within those tunnels, and what you now have is that rather than those tunnels being a passageway for water, they now become clogged up, and that water now flows on our road. And before you say, Jack, we start losing most of those roads. You know, the road canvas, we lose them off, and we start spending money to reconstruct these roads. And to really maintain those tunnels, you have to break them again and to really remove the silt. So, and you can see this happening in most of our cities in the country. Abuja is a new city. Most of the drainage there, they are underground drainage channels, and which are not being maintained very well. But this equipment that are available right now affords you to maintain these tunnels so that you don't have this sediment, so that our roads can last longer, because they're designed to last long. But we don't maintain them. That's why they're not lasting that long. Then we also have a lot of estates, government estate, private estate, with a central sewage system, and most of the sewer lines are blocked off. And you'll be lucky to see many of our estates still having the sewage system that still runs. So it's because there's no technology to maintain those sewer lines, and the equipment we have right now maintain those sewer lines. Once the passage around those areas are free, then you don't have a clogging, and the central sewage system can be meaningful. People are running from central sewage system because they don't have the technology to maintain the sewer lines.
The equipment is the first of its kind in Nigeria and other neighboring countries, and has a lifespan of 30 years. The technology is expected to stop the unsafe practices in waste management.
We clear our drainage channels or our water areas. We clear the silt and we put them on one side of the road and waiting for them to dewater. We call it dewatering. By the time it stays there, you have one rain or two. It washes back right into the drainage channels. And we continue with our dynamic inactivity. We keep rolling the silt from the drainage, put by the roadside, get it washed back there, and stuff like that. The difference with this one right now is that you have cleaners that suck the silt almost immediately and cut it away immediately. You don't even see it being deposited by the roadside. It sucks and collects and evacuates to go and dispose of immediately. So it makes it a neater way of cleaning this, and it's without stress. It's a lot cheaper and it's without stress. Then for our major drainage channels also, yes, most of the debris they can be sucked up, and a lot of floaters get sucked up in these chambers, and they get evacuated almost immediately, and it can run 24/7.
Meanwhile, experts are warning that the impact of this unsafe disposal of waste, especially plastics, will do more harm than flooding. For more than 50 years, global production of plastic has continued to rise. Some 299 million tons of plastics were produced in 2013, representing a 4% increase over 2012. Recovery and recycling, however, remain insufficient, and millions of tons of plastics end up in landfills and oceans each year. A study tagged Marine Plastic Debris and Microplastics, Global Lessons and Research to Inspire Action and Guide Policy Change found that in 2014, global plastic production exceeded 311 million metric tons, a 4% increase over 2013. Between 4.8 and 12.7 million tons ended up in the ocean as a result of inadequate solid waste management. Microplastics are of particular concern.
Yes, it's becoming a huge threat to the world, pollution of the waters, particularly the marine environment, from plastics and marine litter.
One study estimated that, on average, every square kilometer of the world's oceans has 63,328 microplastics particles floating at the surface. Marine organisms can be exposed to microplastics through direct ingestion of water and indirectly as predators in food webs. This plastic debris results in an estimated $13 billion a year in losses from damage to marine ecosystems, including financial losses to fisheries and tourism, as well as time spent cleaning beaches. Animals such as seabirds, whales and dolphins can become entangled in plastic matter, and floating plastic items such as discarded nets, docks and boats can transport microbes, algae, invertebrates and fish into non-native regions, affecting the local ecosystems. The oceans are so vast and deep that until fairly recently, it was widely assumed that no matter how much trash and chemicals humans dumped into them, the effect would be negligible. Proponents of dumping in the oceans even had a catchphrase: the solution to pollution is dilution. There is evidence that the oceans have suffered at the hands of mankind for millennia, but recent studies show that degradation, particularly of shoreline areas, has accelerated dramatically in the past 3 centuries as industrial discharge and runoff from farms and coastal cities has increased. Many marine pollutants are released into the environment far upstream from coastlines. Nitrogen-rich fertilizers applied by farmers inland, for example, end up in the local streams, rivers, and groundwater and are eventually deposited in estuaries, bays, and deltas. These excess nutrients can spawn massive blooms of algae that rob the water of oxygen, leaving areas where little or no marine life can exist. Scientists have counted some 400 such dead zones around the world. The effects of marine pollution to coastal resources are extensive, impacting on the flora, fauna, and entire ecology of the coastal environment. In most cases, apart from direct impact on the living resources, marine pollutants tend to adversely alter or degrade the environment to extreme conditions that are beyond the tolerant or adaptation limits of the living resources therein. Rampant discharge of hot effluent, untreated sewage, oil spills, plastics, and other forms of debris into our coastal aquatic environment is quite common off the coast of Lagos and major industrialized cities of the Niger Delta region of Nigeria, such as Warri and Port Harcourt.
The world suddenly, as part of development, had to get to use plastic material as packaging for several different things, for water, for food, for everyday living. The net effect of this plastic material is the fact that they are not degradable. That is, they cannot disappear. You can't do anything about them, which is one of the advantages why we started using them in the first instance. But it has now turned out to be a big problem. Now, these plastics are used in our different homes. They're supposed to be packaged and sent to a proper landfill. But in most developing countries, this is not the case. Instead, these plastics and plastic material end up in our canals and our streams and our rivers. Now, these plastics then move from these canals and these streams into bigger water bodies, the rivers. The rivers empty into a lagoon, as in the case of Lagos, and this lagoon then ends up in the ocean. So the Atlantic Ocean and what we call the Gulf of Guinea right now is overloaded with these plastic materials. Go into any municipality, any area of our country now, our gutters, our canals, our streams, you will find huge tons of plastics and plastic type material in the gutters. Where are they coming from? They are coming from municipal waste. Our municipal waste is poorly managed, which is another issue, another problem. The fact that we do not handle municipal waste properly, municipal solid waste. So a lot of people use the rivers as their emptying ground for this municipal waste. And from studies we have done, the average municipal waste in Lagos municipality is 60–70% plastic material. The biodegradables in it is only about 10 to 20% from the data of our studies here at the University of Lagos. So at the end of the day, we find that what ends up in the water bodies is essentially plastic. And these plastics get into the rivers, from the rivers into the oceans. That has now become a global issue that UNEP, the United Nations Environment Programme, has now established special programs for marine litter and plastics. The focus of that special program is how can we reduce marine litter, how can we reduce plastics going into our oceans.
Industrialized human society generates vast quantities of materials, many of which, lacking recovery infrastructure, end up as waste. The nature of this waste has changed dramatically over the last 30 to 40 years due to the introduction of synthetic materials such as plastics. Human garbage, including synthetics and plastics, have inevitably found their way into the world's oceans. This rubbish, which is present in the oceans and on beaches, is called marine debris. Astoundingly, it is now evident that marine debris is one of the world's most pervasive pollution problems affecting the oceans. Synthetics like plastics are the most problematic debris because they resist natural degradation processes and are a danger to wildlife. Far from being just a litter problem, marine debris represent a significant threat to wildlife. Numerous marine animals and seabirds are killed or injured either because they become entangled or trapped by marine debris or because they ingest it.
Impact of these plastics is essentially that it reduces fishes, availability of fishes and other marine things that we eat that sustains us as food, because these plastics block the food cycle of the fishes. The fishes run into these plastics, tiny pieces of it in the water, thinking that it's food. They ingest it. As they take it in, it then destroys them, because as it goes into them, it's plastic, it doesn't dissolve, it is not food. they cannot digest it, and they kill those fishes. So there was some time ago when it was found out that in one part of the world, fishes were just found floating on top of the water. These were coming from marine litter that they ingested mistakenly, thinking that it was food. And at the end of the day, they destroy all that. So the net effect of plastics and this marine litter, as we call it globally now, is the fact that it is reducing food availability of fish as food, availability of other marine organisms that we eat, periwinkles, oysters, shellfish, all of that is reducing availability of it. That at the end of the day now, we may end up in a catastrophe. Catastrophe in the sense that we have been advised not to eat meat, that red meat is not good for you, so you should go to fish. But the fish itself is not available. So at the end of the day, we are beginning to see that we need to do something about water pollution with respect to plastics, with respect to marine litter.
Humans are also affected by the marine debris. For instance, plastic bags can cause economic losses to recreational boats when they block water intakes and result in burnt-out water pumps. Boats and ships can also incur costly repairs when derelict fishing gear such as nets and ropes get entangled around propellers and rudders.
What it does is that it seals up the lagoon, and therefore water transport, anybody trying to put a ferry, as Lagos State and several private individuals have tried to do, have not succeeded. They've not succeeded because the bottom, which is supposed to take the water, the propeller of the boat or the ferry they are putting there keeps getting clogged with plastic material, and the economic impact of that is really horrendous. And we are aware of several entrepreneurs who have had to abandon the water transport business because they couldn't get their boats to move in the water. Each time they try to do so, their propellers get clogged with plastics and netting material and styrofoam and all that, and destroys the propeller, and therefore they think it's not profitable business for them. Now imagine if they succeeded. Imagine the reduction on the roads, I mean, in terms of being able to ferry people by transport. I mean, take being able to ferry people, say, from Marina to Ikorodu or from Marina to Ajah on the water body. It will reduce what we see in terms of traffic on our roads. So there are both direct and indirect impacts of water pollution that we see almost on a daily basis from our studies and from different discussion fora that we participated in.
Plastic is generally a durable material which is resistant to natural biodegradation processes. Consequently, it does not readily break down in the marine environment. It is not clear just how long plastic items remain in their original form. However, some plastic items appear to be broken up into smaller and smaller fragments over time. At sea, this process is thought to occur due to wave action, oxidation, and ultraviolet light. On the shore, it may break up into smaller pieces due to grinding from rocks and sand. Countless marine animals have been killed or harmed by debris primarily because they either become entangled in it or they mistake plastic debris for food and ingest it. An additional and potentially harmful aspect of marine debris is its possible impact on organisms living on the sea floor. Plastic debris is often buoyant, but it eventually may break down and settle on the sea floor. An accumulation of this debris on the seabed may affect the organisms present. The accumulation amount of plastic in the ocean is set to increase tenfold by 2020, with the consequences extending centuries into the future because of length of time it takes for plastics to biodegrade, resulting in calls for a global initiative to collect plastic waste floating on the sea surface. plastic debris has now become the most serious problem affecting the marine environment, not only for coastal areas of developing countries that lack appropriate waste management infrastructures, but also for the world's oceans as a whole, because slowly degrading large plastic items generate microplastic. These are particles smaller than 1 to 5 millimeters, which spread over long distances by wind-driven ocean surface layer circulation. Growing scientific and public awareness is fueling global concern regarding the impact of plastic ingested by marine species and the accumulation of the plastics in coastal and remote areas of oceans. Predictions of how the quantity of plastic waste will increase took into account the growing industrialization of developing countries, population growth, and attempts to limit the flow of plastic debris into the oceans based on waste management activities on land.
Before now, when the economy of waste management was not right, you didn't have people investing in it. Who probably would have invested in waste management in those days until we got the economics of waste management right in Lagos. You now have a lot of investors coming into it because of the economic incentive. So for this solution also, the drive in there is to domesticate the technology and to have the right economic platform template that can drive it.
Private and public initiatives such as the volunteer beach cleanups and campaigns for removing beach debris represent the major source of information concerning the amounts and types of marine litter. The regular cleaning by municipalities and public authorities to make beaches attractive to tourists engenders major economic costs.
The issue of water pollution from plastics and from other needs to be taken seriously by our governments, by our regulatory agencies, to reduce the amount of pollutants, the amount of polluting that we are getting. And in addition, we need to also think of improved municipal waste management so that we discourage people from throwing their waste from their houses into the nearby gutters. We get our waste management authorities to be more effective. Several times they put the waste on the sidewalk for days. The waste management authorities do not come there to carry it away. So all this, you can see, it's a vicious cycle. It keeps going round and round. But it hits each and every one of us. Even if you live in the most posh estate that you can think of, you are still being hit by the same problem.
Floating plastics, which are presently the most abundant items of marine litter, also contribute considerably to the transportation of non-indigenous marine species, thereby threatening marine biodiversity and the food web. These floating particles accumulate toxic pollutants on their surface during their long resistant time in polluted seawater and can therefore represent a concentrated source of environmental pollution or serve as a vector for toxic pollutants that accumulate in the food webs.
My advice to our people is that we should have a sense of belonging when it comes to environment. The environment belongs to us, and the way you treat the environment is the way the environment will react to you. And if we treat our environment very well, we can be sure that we are the main beneficiary of this. It's not just the government directly, though the government has the social contract to provide a very good environment for us. But we, the people, are the main beneficiaries. And if we can start this in silos, then the government will integrate these silos and we can have a better environment. If nothing else, let us have a better environment. It's not about how rich you are or how poor. It's about how we care. And it's all start with care.
Sadly, our list of water problems goes on. The industrial pollution, the water impact of energy generation, and of course, our wastes. But there is hope. All it takes is for us to change our ways. We all have to do our part to help make the world a better place, especially for the future generation. I'm Ayola Kasim, asking you to join us again when we open Earth File on another issue on the environment. But before then, should you have any comment or question, our inbox, earthfile@channelstv.com is always available. From all of us here in Lagos, it's bye for now.